Jeff Gluck, Jordan Bianchi, put together a really great article on the Athletic about the current conversation around charters. Did you guys see this?
I didn't have a chance to read it, but I
haven't read it, but yeah, I saw they posted it.
Well, it didn't really say anything that jumped off the page, but it does. There's not any breaking news, I guess is what I should say. But it is the best sort of summary of where we are now. And I think that it says a lot of things that I've been curious if people realize was going on. And I think that you should go read it if you have a chance. I am a subscriber at the Athletic only because Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi are there. They have such great coverage. And they write such great, they chase this kind of content. They did a lot of work to put this story together. Got a lot of great opinions from different teams. So this is pretty interesting. NASCAR and Jim France, the summary of the article basically is that NASCAR and Jim France are kind of sitting here going, "Hey, we're not moving on your demands, right? We're going to stick to our guns. And the teams are sensing they're going to get down to the last moment, and there's going to be pretty much a take it or leave it type of deal."
Dang.
And there's the opinion that Jim France is very aligned with how his family has ran NASCAR for he's very traditionalist in how they run the sport, right? And so I think that if 2311 and Curtis Polk, or is that
Curtis Polk?
Yes.
Yeah. Jordan, all of those guys are heavily quoted in this article, and they are saying, "Hey, man, we've come from other forms of sport, right, with other entities like basketball, and they aren't run this way, and we need that franchise. We need that charter is a franchise, and that we need ownership of that for permanent ownership forever, right? Whereas NASCAR's a bit apprehensive to give the charters to the teams permanently.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR never, I don't think, wanted the charters to ever become a franchise that you own outright. NASCAR wanted to have hold some ownership of those charters to be able to take them back should a team not operate to the standards that they expect, right? So, anyways, it's interesting to me. It's so fascinating to watch this because Jordan and his team have come in from other forms of sport, right, where they see different business models, and they're coming into NASCAR going, "Why are y'all running it like this, man? This isn't like there's better ways to do this." And here's how it works in other forms of sport, and we should adopt some of these sort of practices, and everyone can succeed and flourish, right, babe? But it seems like Jim France and NASCAR they're a bit apprehensive to change the business model, and they want to. They're about progress and growth, right? But they're thinking we're not ready just to, turn on the faucet and open the floodgates or whatever you want to. They're not ready for all of that, all of those demands to be met, I guess, or all that change. It's very, very interesting, and I cannot begin to imagine how this plays out. If 2311 isn't here, and the France family, I think, is operating and communicating with the traditional owners that have been here forever and, the other teams, I think this deal's closer to being done.
That is so interesting. And I'm not speculating that there's this correlation, but Denny seems like, and maybe it's because he has a podcast, but he seems a lot more outspoken than the rest are on the current charter negotiation.
Apparently, there's some of the smaller teams are So NASCAR has decided not to meet with the RTA or the teams as a group anymore, and they're now going out and meeting with them individually, one after the other, right? To have a bit more of a structured conversation without so many voices in the same room, right? And they're making some progress, specifically with some of the teams in the back half of the field. So these smaller teams are sitting here going, I think we probably take this deal, right? Or there seems, in this article, it seems to suggest that some of the smaller teams are NASCAR's benefiting from these one-on-one conversations with these teams, right? But then on the flip side, you have the Hendricks, the RFK 2311 that are like, hey, doesn't matter. We're not going to sign this agreement if it doesn't meet these. So you have this. There's a bit of a challenge, I think, for all of the charter owners, the teams, to all stay on the same page. That'll be a bit of a challenge as we get closer and closer to the finish line. And then, there's just some very, very interesting quotes in this article. Curtis Polk says, he talks about the lack of leverage that the teams have, which you would. I'm reading the quote. It says it as much. He's like, we lack the leverage that we need, and so it's interesting as heck that they feel like they're fighting, right, for all these demands that they want, or they're fighting for what they believe that they should acquire with this charter situation, the new agreement. You're also learning, right, that really, man, there's not what leverage do the teams have other than not showing up, right? Just saying, hey, we don't have agreement. We're not going to run the Clash, right? We all lost money at the Clash. We're not coming. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do some of these things because we're losing money doing them. It's going to be interesting how it plays out. I don't think it will get messy. And I mean, people. I keep seeing this sort of, I keep seeing the split with IndyCar and CART and all of that crap that happened to them, right? I keep seeing that sort of mumblings about that in some of the articles. Even in this article, they mention it, and they say in this article that it's unlikely that we get to that point. I think we'll not get to that point. There's not going to be a public ugly mess. I just don't see that coming. If I had to guess, I think that what ends up happening in my book, I believe that NASCAR holds true to some of the demands, and there's a compromise. Say if there's 4 things that the teams want that NASCAR doesn't want to give them, they may get 2, right? Or they may get 1. And so, but I don't think the teams walk away with everything they want. And I don't think NASCAR gets to go down the road without allowing a few new parameters in the charter agreement that the teams are asking for. But it's interesting, man.
This article seemed to really lay out where the teams are at pretty well. I'm going to have to go check this out after the show. But, obviously you're a team owner in the Xfinity Series. There's not that charter deal in the Xfinity Series, but does that kind of help you see where these Cup teams are at and, understand their perspective?
Yeah, I see both sides of it because, so look, man, I'm frustrated that, I'm frustrated that I don't know, man. It's tough. I wish I was. There's a lot there, Andrew. I wish I'd have been smart enough to buy a charter when they were cheaper. That's the first thing I want to say because I know anything I say after this, people are going to go, well, you had a shot. You had a chance. You missed it. You missed it. You missed your chance, bud. It's over. And I did. There's no way at the current selling price that I personally am going to go out and buy a charter myself. And so It's not sour grapes, but I know the teams want to be successful. I know that I know that they want certain things in this new charter deal to be met. They want to own the charter outright. If I had a charter today, I would want that. If I owned a charter and had one right now on this table, I would want to own it forever. But I'm also a traditionalist, and I'm nervous and apprehensive about this direction that we're going, where the barrier of entry for somebody to compete at this level or as an owner is going to be more challenging financially, maybe, right? Now, you don't have to have a charter to race. You can enter a race without a charter. Carl Long, we talked about it on DJD Reloaded, how he's going to try to do that. But I don't know. I'm all for our sport prospering, making money, doing great. But I also am like, hey, man, I like to see that happen at a nice, slow pace, right? And all the change that's coming in, I'm just like fighting against some of that internally. And even though I don't know, like, hey, okay, if you give the teams everything they want, what happens to the sport, right? Is that detrimental in any way to competition or whatever, right? Does it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm nervous, right, about what that might happen. And if we don't give the teams what they're asking for, are we holding ourselves back? Are we keeping ourselves from becoming global, from becoming lucrative, from becoming profitable, right? It says in that article, man, the teams lost money at the Clash. The teams lose money every year.
Right.
That's nothing new. I've never made any money racing. You don't make money racing anywhere. I would love to know where somebody is racing a race car and making money doing it. It ain't happened in my life at the street stock level, the late model stock level, the trucks, the Xfinity. Never. And every cup team I've ever known didn't make money. And so, but the teams think that that's possible, and the teams think that that's realistic and should be happening. But that's so foreign to me. Like, making money? I don't know. I
feel like that would make sense, though, for a team
right.
to want to be in the sport.
That's
right?
where I'm struggling, because I'm locked in this mode of, dude, racing's always been like, how do you make a small fortune? You start with a big one and go racing. That's always been the known factor. If you're going to get in racing, be ready to spend some money, and you're not going to walk away profitable. And so I don't know if it's even realistic for the teams to think that they can even get profitable, but maybe they could. I mean, we break even here. I'm not saying we're losing money. We break even running in the Xfinity Series. So I think breaking even and making money in the Cup Series is realistic. But it just I've always known and felt and accepted that racing as an owner was a difficult thing financially. So, yeah.
Well,
I guess I could talk. I know we won't have enough time, but I could talk to Denny about this forever. And he's very opinionated about it. And he's pro teams, right? He's going to be pro charters, pro teams owning charters. He's going to be for all of those things. And I think that everything that they're asking for is realistic, and there's nothing that the teams are asking for where I'm like, that's wrong. They shouldn't get that, or they should fight it. NASCAR shouldn't let them have that. But I'm just fascinated, but also slightly concerned about like what the ultimate agreement is and what it means for the future of the industry and longevity and success of NASCAR as a whole, right? What's the best thing for us going forward? I think I'm concerned about like where's short tracks, the short track package, road courses, the product on these tracks, and the future of the sport and the car and the next gen. And there's just so many things that are like, there's so many things that are happening and so many storylines. It's a very busy time.
Feels like it's a lot to juggle.
Yes. So now this, right? Now and this is playing out in the background and maybe the most important thing.
Right.
This is probably the most important thing going on in the sport right now, outside of the chase for another championship. Who wins the title this year? I don't really have a question, but I do know that you're involved in this. I'm so fascinated by the charter conversation that's going on in the sport. The Athletic, Jeff Gluck and Bianchi put out an article this in the past couple of days or in the past 24 hours that really, I think, sums up where things are today. There's been some debate, like O'Donnell comes out and says we're close. The teams come out and say, nope, we're not close. That's not right. But I think if you've read this article, I don't know if you have, Denny, but I feel like it does a really good job of giving all of us an understanding of kind of how far along we are.
I think you're correct. I have read it. I think the four main key pillar issues that we've tried to address with NASCAR are in that article. One being the permanency of charters. There's a wide range of reasons why that is important. Especially for the teams that have purchased charters, to have them have the ability to be taken away at any moment is not ideal by any means. People like Rick Hendrick, Joe Gibbs have invested in the sport for decades and decades and deserve to give their kids that permanent charter and it be something that is able to be passed down. Obviously, a correct sharing of the revenue is one that is big. Right now, there is three stakeholders in this sport: the tracks, the teams, and NASCAR. And to be quite honest, two of those stakeholders make 9-figure profits a year, and one stakeholder loses 7-figure profits per year. So there's clearly a disconnect, and I wish that the fans were more informed of how offset this deal is and how unfair it is to the teams. But that's an issue. You've got we've asked to have a sharing of any future revenue, so we're not going to dig in anyone's pockets from NASCAR from anything that they've made or established in the past. And it's, anything from this point forward, we've asked for, a third of that, and they've adamantly said no. And we've willing to give extra rights up to give that. They've said no. And then just governance, it's certain protections that the teams need in case of transfer of ownership. So there's a lot of different things that are key pillars, and this is kind of the first time I'm saying it publicly because I think we've reached a boiling point where, it needs to be fixed. And certainly we're dealing with, certainly one individual that won't come out publicly and tell his story of why he won't give these things to the teams that have invested heavily in putting the show on each and every week.
When is the day that this has to come to an agreement?
It doesn't have to.
No.
I mean, it doesn't have to, but isn't there like a day where it's like, hey man, okay, the current agreement ends? Yeah, at the end of this year, and then there would be no charters.
Right.
And it would be ignorant of fans to say, well, that's great, no charters. Well, then we just wouldn't show up when we don't need to. The Clash, we won't show up at that. The All-Star race wouldn't show up at that. maybe there's some races that pay less. We just won't show up to those. It's just not financially good. So, listen, I'm sure there'll be owners not like that I'm saying this publicly, but I've reached the point of frustration that, it's just, it's boiling over.
Well, bud, I'm going to cut you off before you get yourself in big trouble.
All right. Thank you.